for the week. So that was good. For the week. So that was good.
Okay, well, good evening all. Welcome to the meeting of the Growth Planning Committee for the town of Kennebunkport. This is our September 7th meeting. I'm Dan Saunders, and we'll go around the audience here and members of the board and have them introduce themselves. So, Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet Powell.
Jim McMahon, you there?
Hi, James McMahon.
Excellent. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Jim Fitzgerald.
Mr. Hogan.
Mr. Hogan is here.
Supposed to give your first name, Paul.
That would be Paul.
Okay. Well, same much from Mr. Warner.
Warner Gilliam.
All right. And then we have Liz and Tom. So Liz.
Liz Durfee.
And Tom Morgan.
All right. Great. Anyone I miss? I don't think so. All right. Thank you all. So on our agenda this evening, we will start off with the discussion on the vision and community character chapter. So I see we have vision's been updated, and I know Paul sent out a recommendation for the beginning. Did you guys all see that from Paul?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay.
I just sent it a short while ago. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just sent them.
Well, actually, what I did since then was Janet had some suggestions too, so I put them both on our latest draft, and we're calling it draft number 6. I can share that on the screen if you like.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, here we go. All right. I'm not sure what it looks like at your side. Do you see it? Is it on your screen?
Yes.
Not on the first page.
Oh, because I had scrolled down. Do you see the top now? First page?
Yes.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And is it big enough? I could blow it up larger. Can you guys read it?
A little bigger would be good. Thank you.
Okay, we can handle
We
that.
can do that.
Yeah. Now, let's see.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Now, I've applied some color to some of the fonts here. The blue font is a result of our last meeting with the planning board, in which we kicked the ball around quite a bit, and eventually the two boards came up with some semblance of consensus. And that's reflected in the blue. Those are changes that were made at the last meeting with the Growth Planning Committee. Red indicates suggestions that have come in from various parties that the Growth Planning Committee has not yet addressed. So feel free to go back and revisit the blue if you like. And of course, anything on the black is fair game, but the red indicates suggestions from various folks. This is paragraph number 2 in red, that's from Janet. Paragraph number 3 in red is from Paul. So we've got 3 different versions of the document's first paragraph here, and it's I guess probably makes sense to go chronological, huh? Start with the beginning of the document.
Sure.
Yeah, somehow we're going to have to reconcile these 3 different ways of starting off the vision statement, and I'd be happy to hear from both Janet and Paul as to why they prefer one to the other.
Well, I really, I felt that the sentiment made sense in the opening blue paragraph, but I felt it was a little awkward, and I just kind of rearranged the words to hopefully make it flow a little better. I really didn't work on the thought or the ideas expressed, other ideas added to it. It was just sort of a reworking of that blue, the blue paragraph, beginning of the blue.
We had a lot of fingers in that first.
I know.
Yeah.
First
A little
part.
murky.
And it got a little crazy, I think.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you draft by committee.
Yeah.
And when you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, it is. So not an easy situation.
That's okay. You get a lot of feedback, and we can modify it at the end of the day.
I like your paragraph, by the way.
So we'll take that
That's
statement
to
and put it in
replace the
front, right?
first sentence.
Yeah.
That's just the first
Paul, you and I were on the same
red
page.
instead of blue.
Yeah.
Rework.
Yeah, I think it's much better than the first sentence.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so everybody's in agreement with that. I'll do it right now. You guys ready for that?
Well, that's better than the other
Well,
one.
we're
We
not
gotta talk
voting.
about Paul's.
Huh? What?
Yeah, I would.
Paul's first.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
should talk about Paul's before you
I
make the
thought it was
change.
strong, and I thought it made a lot of sense.
Okay. Paul, tell us about your paragraph.
Well, I just thought that given where we will be in 2030 and where we need to be by 2030, we should address the biggest challenge of our time, particularly as a coastal community, although my little town in New Jersey is far from the coast, as I mentioned. So it ought to be sort of front and center. So I was, I probably, the fact that what happened, in the weather this week, plus reading that first sentence, just got me to thinking about what our priorities are and should be. So mine was just a different approach for the first sentence, and I basically incorporated the rest of that basically as you had it. Some modest change.
So what if we took the way Janet reworded that first sentence and then take your first sentence and maybe remove the into 2030 since we said it already and add that as sentence 2? Because it's talking about, working collaboratively with residents, business owners, employers.
Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, I would tend then to take out will be healthy, safe, and well balanced, because that's kind of
Yeah,
doesn't really say anything.
I would eliminate that too.
I'm fine with that. So
And of course, we'd strike that. If we did this, we'd strike the next paragraph
Right,
because it's already there.
right. Yeah,
Right.
I'm ready to strike. I'm waiting for everybody to say they're good with the new version.
So I was just looking at that before the meeting started. I was looking at what Paul sent, and I had a couple suggestions. Should under regional players we put regional communities, so sort of make it a little more broad? Or what do you mean? What do you mean by players? I guess
I meant by, in fact, I had read. What made me think of that was a story I saw in the Bangor paper over the weekend. I think it was the Bangor paper over the weekend, where Laurie Smith was trying to get League of Maine Municipalities, or whatever it's called, to have communities work regionally in using this federal money instead of just these little one-offs. And maybe we can, instead of doing a lot of little things, maybe you could solve a problem you never had a chance to solve before by taking a regional approach. If you have this one-time money,
So maybe instead of regional players, we could say neighboring communities.
Oh, stole my words.
Sure.
Yeah, that would sound good.
Well, I like the idea of regional. I didn't have a problem. I was just wondering for the word players more. Do we want to define it as a singular or regional communities? Is what I was actually thinking.
I don't like regional and communities together.
Okay. So I was trying to get more than just having Bitterford, Kennebunk, and Rockland.
Yeah, of course.
How do we get?
Right.
Yeah.
How about partners? Because you might be working with the planning commission
That's a good
too.
word.
Sure.
Yep.
Regional partners.
Good one.
And then I was thinking, should we work into this something about sustainability? We'll have instituted sustainable practices to reduce our reliance on carbon-based energy. I mean, to go after the sea level rise, right?
Mhm.
Storm intensification. We got to do things that we can do locally to reduce our reliance. And we've already talked about some of those
Right.
in our meetings. You know, even if it's just putting in a solar farm somewhere.
Yeah, excellent idea. I would suggest we address that in the paragraph entitled Climate Resilience, which is further
Okay.
down on page 3.
That's fine. That's fine. And how do we work in?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because I wanted, if we're going to get out here and these things, our biggest challenges, I think, are more than just sea level rise. I guess is what I was getting at. If that's going to be in our upfront statement, this is, you know, a little bit to what they were talking about last week, where, you know, having a vision statement that's really sort of like one paragraph, and then we have all these.
Are you talking about the challenges?
Well, just kind of going back to what our sort of our vision statement defines us. Right. In my mind, it's almost this first paragraph is sort of setting the vision.
Yeah.
And then we get into the separate sections of what that means, sort of.
Right. How about after sea level rise, Dan, we do something, throw out the kitchen sink there and say, and all other challenges posed by changing climate. So you guys
Definitely in that line after new challenges.
Well, yeah, but right.
Dan, you were saying, other than environmental challenges, you wanted to get in.
I wanted to get something in about a diverse culture.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So, you know, because it's more than just climate change, it's more than sea level rise. It's also, we want to improve our diversity within our town to make it more resilient.
Maybe we can do that in the next sentence as we adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Are those? Go ahead.
We've lost, I would say, we lost the word balance in our revisions. So maybe we can put, and that was part of, I think, an important, you know, trying to balance the competing interests of the residents here versus the economic driver, tourism. Which I think is
what are our biggest challenges? Is it truly storm intensification and sea level rise, or are there other things that we identified as new challenges that?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we know challenges, certainly affordable housing, but that's more, I think it's having a diverse culture.
Yeah, I prefer to have a vision statement that doesn't set the expectation to be intrusive. I mean, I believe in climate change, but, you know, I also don't think we should take the high road of being completely intrusive and, you know, identifying it everywhere it needs to be. It needs to be identified, but maybe not everywhere.
I'm not sure I know what you mean there by intrusive, Jim. I mean,
intrusive is that we set the expectation to be intrusive into people's, as you know, what we set the expectation for when we start talking about things. So,
okay.
I mean, I think that's a philosophical approach. You know, I would respond by saying we've known about this problem since about 1910, when some really smart scientists figured out what the internal combustion engine and coal was doing. And 100 years later, 120 years later, all of a sudden, we now realize it's not still in the future. It's here and now and this week. And I would say it is our existential crisis of our times for the whole world. And a laissez-faire, let's hope it gets better approach. We tried that, and it's, you know, I think there's widespread recognition that government needs to have a different role than in the past. There was a recent article in the New York Times about how even people who disagree with it now realize there has to be, we have to begin solving these problems. So
sure, and you're right, and I think it's, you know, being in the Northeast, that we should have maybe a balanced approach, and not, what I mean by intrusive is too overbearing with respect to, you know, I mean, there's still going to be people that burn wood, you know, there's still people that are going to burn oil, and, you know, we should start, the balanced approach with respect to educating people on, we want to do the right thing in your community, but we're not going to be overbearing to completely strip away your individual rights to have a fireplace or do certain things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I think the vision, I don't know. I'd like to see more of a balanced.
Okay.
Remember what a vision is. The vision is, what are we going to look like 10 years from now?
Right.
Not what we're going to look like tomorrow or what we're going to start working on.
Right.
That'll come, but right now the vision is, what are we going to look like 10 years from now?
What would we like to look like in 10 years?
Right. What is the reasonable expectation to look like? So,
do you guys have the Q&A on your version of Zoom? Can you see that we have a member of the public who's offered a suggestion here? Or is it just me?
No, I'm not seeing that.
I don't see it.
All right. Tracy
see
here, she has sent in a suggestion for language. She says, how about, quote, the new challenges presented by climate change, unquote. There's another suggestion for how to deal with this sentence.
Yeah.
I was intentionally staying away in the introduction from the word climate change because I didn't want to put some people off, whereas most people understand we're having intensification of storms and we're having sea level rise. Those are facts. How it happens. So I had not used that word intentionally.
Mhm.
Okay.
However, it appears almost on every page as you move into the document.
Right. No, I realize that.
Right? But I understand you don't want to start out with a great big CC. I get it.
Yeah. No, I think that's appropriate.
It's thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be explained. So you don't want to.
So remember too, this is just our opening paragraph. I mean, we have all these other paragraphs that as we go, as Tom's going to show us, as we work down through the rest of the document, that I think address a lot of those pieces. So, I think part of the question is do you need to identify every issue, within the opening paragraph, or just, I don't know.
Well, that's why I mentioned if we're going to identify the new challenges, are those specific to what we want to put in as the vision?
If anything, 10 years from now, I'd love to be fully educated on everything that's going on in this town. But I think we need to kind of put it in perspective because, we can't just dish this stuff out, tell people to fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not going to happen. But we can sure all get educated about it, and we can sure all jump on board to help make it something different than what it is today.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. I just think that this, I'll go back to it. I think this paragraph sets the whole vision. And then all the other things underneath it are just parts of how we get there. So I think it's important that we address in the vision, the issues that we face as a community, how we want those to be, what are they going to look like in 8, 10 years? And certainly sea level rise is an issue that we have to address. We can't ignore it. And we know if we continue to go on the way we've gone with the aging community and so forth, that it's going to change how we are as a community. If we can't get a diverse culture in place. So if we don't, I think we need to address that up in this first part.
Yep.
Right. And then the next after that is what we do. I don't know how we get to that diverse culture. We're doing a little bit with the housing, but that's an important piece. Otherwise the town will change.
Does it make sense?
We won't have the lobstermen here. We won't have volunteers in your fire department because we'll all be too old.
Do you think it's covered by maintain our unique small town character, or can we better describe that in terms of, maintaining our residential population, our diverse, year-round population, or
Yeah.
because that's what
Well, there's a reference to that in community character when you're talking about protecting the rights and needs of our permanent residents. It doesn't really talk about potential problems by not addressing current red flags. But if we were to just use the idea of new challenges, I guess you could use a phrase that speaks to the variety of challenges, or we could get into more detail and list them. But it sounds as though we want to make the intro more general and not delineate all of the.
I would tend to agree with Dan that we have, and Werner, from a capital expenditure, what's your biggest concern in the next 10 years, and how much of it is driven by our infrastructure needing to be rehabbed, upgraded as a result of flooding roads, flooding pipes, sewer pump stations, et cetera, et cetera. I'm in agreement with Dan that we sort of have two big ones coming at us. That is the loss of community, and that diversity or that balance, because of most new houses that are built are not owned by year-round residents. And then this environmental one, which is changing our community. These are two things that are happening at us, not that were planned, not.
But
Does it make sense to change that sentence to more generalized on the new challenges from environmental impacts and what Dan's suggesting, some terms relating to the changing in the
Cultural diversity,
demographics or whatever?
Yeah, I guess my suggestion was
changing in demographics probably doesn't sound
right. We need a better
good, but something of that fashion.
What about, look at the very first line where we talk about Kennebunk as a coastal Maine community. What if we strike coastal and put diverse? It's not that we're saying it's really diverse, but that's our vision.
Okay.
I like coastal. I mean, I think it really resonates with a lot of people,
But it already is on the coast and it's not moving. It could move farther inland.
That's kind of what I was
but we're
thinking.
not the only ones looking at this. You know what I mean?
yeah, but
it's written for us. It's our mission statement. It's not written for anybody else.
That's right.
It's written for our town and our residents, and other people may read it. Probably 10 or 12 people, other than state. Nobody picks up on Sunday morning and reads somebody's comprehensive plan. So we know we're a coastal community. So I think that's a good change.
Diverse is good. I like that.
So one of the things that's inherent.
We're aspiring to be more diverse. So, and to be seen as and to actually be more diverse.
Well, because honestly, I like the word coastal, and also it implies that we'll still be here and not underwater in 50 years. So we vision Kennebunkport as a coastal Maine community that is diverse, recognized by residents.
That's good.
That is diverse, recognized by residents, visitors. Yeah. So we get the diverse in there.
Yeah, that's right up front. I like that.
Recognized as diverse?
That is diverse.
That is diverse.
Comma, recognized by residents, visitors in the state for its integrity and ability, blah, blah, blah.
And then we got to work back in that health, safety, and well-balanced. The well-balanced piece. How do we work that in?
I think that's your diverse. To me, that's
enough. That's enough. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you define as well-balanced, Dan?
Well, I think the well-balanced was, I mean, you're right, diverse can cover that, but well-balanced to me was more towards how we manage, how the town is supporting residents and tourism at the same time in a very balanced way. I think that's a little bit different than,
Economically balanced? I mean, I assume we're talking about diverse as in, you know.
well, so that we work with tourism, I mean, and we talk about it a little bit later, right? How do we change tourism so it has less of a impact on the resident community, right?
But if you add that into the beginning, the first sentence, and just split that first sentence into two. So it could be, in 2030, we envision Kennebunkport as a coastal Maine community that is diverse and well-balanced, period. The town is recognized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the second sentence is long enough so that it's, it reads well.
I think it is recognized. Will be. You don't need will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a will be in the now third sentence that I think could be our community will work instead of will be working.
Well, works collaboratively.
Works. Mm-hmm.
So it'll be ongoing, right?
What line are we on this?
Two down.
So,
Line 2 and then line 4.
Yeah.
what happened is the verb envisioned as a town. I think we created a new sentence, so we have a new subject and we need a new verb. So are we going to keep it? You need to put it in the future tense, right? The town will be
not necessarily, but you bring
we're
up a
projecting
point.
into the future. That was
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna flag the grammar right here in the first 4 lines. We shift from future into present.
Yeah, we want to be.
So we have to be consistent.
Envision is a verb in the present tense, but it assumes a future idea, right?
Right.
It's a tricky
Yeah.
one.
But it's a little ambiguous in that you say, well, we're going to have this vision in 2030, or we have it now.
Right.
So what I was
You
gonna
want to change? It's okay with me. I'm fine.
all right. What I was going to suggest is that we take out 2030, because earlier on in the document, it's going to be clear that we're shooting for 2030.
Okay, that's
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't like that anyway. It's awkward.
Are we pretty much there with paragraph 1?
I think so.
Excellent. Safe to take this out, the old paragraph?
Yes.
All right, coming out. Cool.
Good.
All right. We're almost caught up as far as we were last week.
It's okay. It's an
Well,
important
short time.
paragraph.
Does it, I'm just going to go back to that sentence with the new challenges. I'd prefer to see the sea level rise stay and then maybe identify one of the other challenges that we may have. I think sea level rise implies that, we may have storm intensification. To me, it makes sense to put something else in there that may be one of the other challenges, that we want to exclusively address in that paragraph.
Well, you have 2 big challenges, in the community. I think, in terms of, what we deal with in terms of climate, that touches a lot of things, that touches infrastructure, that touches, our operations, that touches our natural resources. But I think the other thing that, that when somebody talks about diversity and balance, that's a demographic, that starts talking about a demographic, question. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to separate these in kind of into 2 big, say you got 2 big buckets here, we've got climate, and you have demographic, you have, your natural resources and your physical resources that you have, and then you have the people. Mm-hmm. And so it may be that, and if we're describing kind of 2 things here, that's what we have, it's our, the physical challenges, and then it's, who do we, who do we want in this community? Do we value, our year-round residents? Do we value a age-diverse population? Do we value economically diverse population? Those are some of the things that diversity brings to mind. So maybe put them into those two categories, demographic and climate.
You might say something like the challenges of changing demographics and climate.
Yeah, I mean, the big ticket is the affordability question. That's you want to talk about two big things that hit the state of Maine. It's climate and housing.
So maybe residential affordability and sea level rise. I mean, I want to keep the sea level rise. I'm just trying to think of like the,
But the first sentence captures, we're not putting these in, with bright headlights, number 1, number 2, but the first sentence is covering the demographic. The second sentence is, a general philosophy, and the third sentence is the environmental one. And James, it's more than just, we need to say both because sea level rise is a factor, particularly for coastal communities, but storm intensification is another impact of climate change. It's separate and apart. It may have a direct impact here because at a particular storm, at a high tide, we may get, double slammed, but it's two separate, this last week proved it. Louisiana got hit by a hurricane, which was the coastal event, and New Jersey got hit by an inland storm. No impact at all on the coast of New Jersey or New York. Sea level rise had nothing to do with it. And yet it'll be billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, trying to look at it and as people read it to figure out, to me, when I read it, it's all the new challenges are specific to environmental issues. That's the only way I'm reading it. So,
well, because the first sentence doesn't say that, but we're envisioning a community that's diverse and well balanced. So that in itself is a response to a challenge, in my mind, as I read
the challenges of economic affordability.
But we say that we explain that below. We have an economic opportunity. We have a community character. It's all there.
Right, and there's a lot of references to climate change, which also.
So if we added, at the end of well balanced, we put between town residents and local businesses or something like that. Is that?
I don't think you want to start out with the first.
You want to start out? Yeah. Okay.
I don't think that would go.
It begs the question, a reader who's not part of this discussion, when they say well balanced, what does that mean?
Yeah, what's it mean?
Right, right.
And what does diversity mean? Diversity also is kind of a vague term.
Yeah.
But again, it's defined as you move through the document.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's nice that it's kind of vague because it's sort of all encompassing.
Yeah. I'm just pointing out that as the vision, the only new challenges that we're concerned with that's all.
What about?
We can keep it, but I just think we should diversify it a little bit. But that's fine.
So how about challenges? So we take out. You have storm intensification. We could talk about that later, Paul, and maybe add challenges of sustainability. It's a little bit vague, but it's a different topic on how.
Sustainability is kind of a term that was used 20 years ago when we thought this wasn't going to happen. It's no longer.
But sustainability can cover other than just environmental problems. It could be economic sustainability.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a general term in the vision statement that includes a variety of things. So.
How about swapping out new challenges from storm intensification and sea level rise with new challenges including storm intensification and sea level rise?
We're just changing the words around, right?
Just
Well, it's
saying
adding as an
not
example.
from, just, yeah, using it as an example.
Right, but we're still using the same terms. What I was trying to do is try to diversify that.
The term.
You know, our new challenges are sea level rise. There's no doubt about that. You know, but we're referencing two environmental impacts where, you know, does it make sense to talk about other things that are specific, you know, more other challenges that when people read this, they're going to see it as a balanced approach. You know what I mean?
Do you have anything on fisheries? Declining fisheries?
Yeah, just brief
That makes it-
paragraph down. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it economically, and it's something that's incredibly important to the character of our town. If there wasn't a single fishing boat in Cape Porpoise, I would beg to imagine be less people coming here. Just because they know that even if they never even go over and look at them, you know, it's just the history of the town. Is, you know, it was a marine town. Built boats and we went fishing. We did lobstering.
Right.
I like Liz's proposed change, just say including, because it's not.
No objections.
And can we say including, do you want to say climate change and then some word for balance, diversity, so that we get the demographic in the same, put it at the same par?
Mm-hmm.
I think you could do that. You could maybe strike the new in that sentence. I don't know if demographic
That's not necessary.
It's not really.
Yeah.
And just think about the emphasis on that sentence is sort of on working collaboratively with others. So, I think you're still going to be working with regional partners on maybe housing related issues, but just want to make sure it still reads clearly.
Say housing, including housing, don't sea level rise.
But if we're going to generalize, we're going to work on the challenges with partners, including.
Do we want to say on
environmental
multiple challenges or some kind of numeric or a time or a number before challenges? Because it's sort of flat, just reading as on challenges. What kind of challenges? I know it doesn't necessarily apply, but.
If we're generalizing environmental and if we generalize it to environmental and economic challenges.
You're going to wordsmith this thing to death. I think you ought to just take what you have, move on. And if you have to come back to fix something, do it.
When are we going to do that, though?
Well, you could make a proposal and send it in, just like I did this afternoon when I reread it.
Okay.
I was going to suggest we move on simply because we seem to be kind of caught in the weeds here.
Okay.
And by moving on, maybe you're going to realize that a lot of these this content that you're looking for is actually further down the document.
Yep.
Okay. Let's move on. If anyone has additional comments they want to make to that change, please, send those out to everyone.
Yeah, we can come back anytime, including this evening if we get that far.
Okay.
Next paragraph, community character. This is what we did 3 weeks ago. We added the sentence that's in blue. The other thing we did 3 weeks ago is we combined several paragraphs that had one thing in common, and that was the economy. So now the economy covers these 3 paragraphs here, but there's 3 different major components of the economy in Kennebunkport. One is tourism, the other is the commercial fishing industry. And the other one was making sure that people can start small businesses and have home offices and taking economic initiatives that make sense for them without government being too heavy-handed. So everybody seemed to have gotten past page 1 3 weeks ago. So I was going to suggest we move on to new territory that we haven't discussed yet. That would be page 2 here. Once again, the topic is the economy, economic opportunities.
Okay. So is that the red? What's the red?
Red was submitted by Paul prior to their last meeting. Paul knew he wasn't going to be able to join us.
Okay, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he sent us some comments. And
Just
3 weeks
Just to
ago,
clarify,
we didn't
clarify.
Go ahead, Paul.
yeah, I had sent out the draft vision statement to like 20 people, and about 10 of them came back with comments. So I aggregated them and sent them in. They weren't all mine.
Okay. At any rate, we didn't get to page 2 at the last meeting, so here we are.
Hey, Tom, can you send us this? I find this very difficult to do when I can't see what was in the prior paragraph.
Sure
Like it doesn't
can.
make any sense to me when I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, I can do that right now. Yeah.
What was the new one? The one in blue? Because I remember looking at this afternoon.
I can do that while you're talking.
We didn't have this afternoon.
I remember reading this part.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry. This is from the prior. I looked at it from
Yeah.
I
the
think this, isn't this draft 5 just with a couple of initial, the initial
Yeah.
paragraph? We had 2 additions.
That's what I was looking at, Janet.
Yeah.
We had this part 3 weeks ago. You just
Yeah.
didn't, between the planning board and yourselves, you didn't make it through the whole document.
That was like a traffic jam in Dock Square.
Well, it was a lot to cover in one night.
Yeah, it's too much.
So Liz is going to send out a copy of number 6. It's going to look just like this, except for obviously the first
Thanks.
page. Unless, Liz, have you changed the first paragraph? Probably not. Huh?
I did not change the first
All right,
paragraph.
but everything else will be the same.
Okay.
This is what's on the screen. And down at the bottom of the page, you know you're in the right document, but it's going to say draft number 6.
Okay.
Is the print big enough? I can make it bigger. I
It's
don't know.
plenty big.
That's good.
Okay.
That's plenty big.
Yeah.
So the Kennebunkport Climate Initiative, what are we referencing there?
This was just a comment on the ecotourism thing, which we've taken that term away, I think,
Yeah.
but I haven't.
I mean, I'm in favor of taking it away, but
Yeah, we did take it
I'm
away.
just some one person. Yeah.
The first part?
Just the term ecotourism. There was some further discussion, but I think we.
Yeah, you could ignore that
Remember
first
that.
comment.
So,
Second
all right.
And
Okay,
the
so-
second comment is really, do we see ourselves having, traffic jams for the next 50 years, 10 years,
Right.
for 4 months or 5 months? Now it's 6 months, which is great for business. But it's, it used to be you could cruise through today, Tuesday after Labor Day, and that changed, So anyway, that was what that comment was.
Do we address those things without really saying it in the paragraph before it? Because we are talking about
That's what I can't
electric-powered
see.
shuttle
That's-
vans. Oh, okay.
That's why I wanted to see it for myself.
Yeah. Okay.
I just emailed it out. I replied to the email from earlier today. So you should
Okay.
get it in a second.
Right. So the red is just the red is just a comment, or is that something that's proposed? Okay.
Just a comment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So where should we go with this comment?
Well, my thought was a lot of that's covered by what was written in the statement before, but I wasn't sure if that statement before was the same as previous. I recall having an ecotourism section that
Yeah, if-
kind of struck.
when you,
Maybe.
What? Yeah.
When you-
Somebody.
when you see the black font up here in the document, that's stuff that has not changed.
Okay.
Right from draft 1, that's still there.
But we did take a few things out, didn't we, Tom, about the shuttles to the beach?
Yeah, we did remove some things.
Remove
but-
that,
Yeah. And the blue is stuff that was added 3 weeks ago.
right.
But the blackest language, it's been there since the
Right.
beginning.
Right.
Okay.
Is that where the ecotourism was?
Yes.
Yes,
Committee
around this, yeah.
deleted that term.
Okay.
The two committees, I say.
Ecotourism, is that a new word for kind of like carpooling? Or
No, it's a word. It's a word we decided was inappropriate for
Misplaced, yeah.
Yeah.
us.
I was just trying to understand what it meant.
It's like if you go to the Galapagos Islands
Right.
and go see what nature is there, that would be considered ecotourism.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for explaining that.
Tourism with a light footprint.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Costa Rica made it famous. I thought, well, what a great idea for Kennebunkport. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just, it's the light footprint part that we,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the comments, the suggestion to integrate an eco-electric bus concept, would that? I think it's a good idea, but does it not help the situation? It just kind of changes the vehicle, I guess. Are we still?
Well, smell nicer.
No, I think the concept is like, I think Salem has done this. You know, you can't go into the center of Salem, Massachusetts with your car anymore. You park someplace and you get taken in. And, it's the same thing that Venice is trying to do right now because the town is being crushed and ruined by, the amount of tourists. Venice is limiting the number of tickets they'll let into Venice each day. Mm-hmm. But someplace like Salem is saying, we just don't need these cars. Yeah. We want our community back. We don't want drive-through tourism.
Right.
And, so is there a vision that would have it differently? The only way, you could say no traffic through town for 2 months a year, and visitors park at remote sites and get bused to the center. And then they get on their feet and they walk around. I mean, that would be one approach if you wanted to try to reduce the volume through Dock Square. Let people take Route 1, and if they want to see Dock Square, they go to a parking lot. They go to the Trolley Museum and Park. They go,
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not proposing anything specific. I'm just saying, is there a vision that we do something else than what we're doing?
Yeah.
Or are we just resigned to, there's nothing we can do, so let's not worry about it.
well, I think there's a little bit, I'm not sure how we'd work with the state because that's a state road, right? Route 9 going right through our town. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure they'd be all that happy about us changing it without providing some alternative, which I'm sure we don't want to pay for. But it's good. No, it's a good point. And I think a lot of the things we say in this above it, if we're talking about shuttle vans and all the rest, and it's certainly more enjoyable to walk through town or to get a ride on a shuttle bus and you're not driving and have to find a place to park. Mm-hmm. And so those kind of things would be nice. When I travel, we'd love to stay in a hotel that's in walking distance, or you can grab an easy shuttle to wherever you want to go eat.
Right.
Versus hopping in the car and driving someplace and finding a parking spot. So
I had somebody at my corner about 3 weeks ago. I'm 5 miles from Dock Square, but it happens to be Ocean View, and so many people mistake Ocean Avenue. But what they were looking for was 3 Ocean Avenue, where they wanted to park and get on a trolley so they could see all the sights. So they had, they had a great plan, and they would have loved to be in a trolley, so they weren't, but they had 2 problems. Of course, there's no parking at 3 Ocean Avenue, where the trolley was advertised.
Right.
They just didn't know.
Yeah.
So it made me think about that. That made me think, these people had wanted to do it the right way. I would do it the same way if I didn't want to hoof it myself.
I like these comments. I kind of agree with Dan that the vision part of this is kind of covered already up here at the bottom of page 1. And some of these
Yeah, I agree.
other comments about, the eco-electric bus and remote parking, which is an excellent comment. That we could fit into the comprehensive plan as a recommendation or strategy.
Strategy, right?
In the transportation chapter, for example.
Where we did discuss this peripherally.
So that's probably a better home for it than the vision chapter.
Sounds good. People just gave me the comment, so I added it.
Yeah.
So the one last comment before we go says exemplary natural communities was not understood by one reader. So do we need to?
Where is that?
Right up here at the bottom of page 1.
Yeah. Visitors will flock to walking tours, abundant historic sites, a remarkable diversity, well-documented shaded trees, beautiful gardens, and exemplary natural communities. What do we mean by that? I mean, that's
what is it, the elm trees documented? Is that what they're referring to? The preserving the elm trees, well-documented shade trees?
I guess it's everything.
Yeah,
It's the beaches, it's the marshes, it's the
Yeah.
harbor.
I think more like habitats and ecosystems, but that's what I would think of when I read natural communities.
Marshes.
okay.
It's communities,
You could certainly say a different word if
natural
that's not
resources,
explicit.
natural resources instead of communities.
I think it's more than just the individual resources. It's sort of it's the combination of resources. So I think habitat is maybe a little bit.
Ecosystems?
Exemplary natural communities in relation.
Yeah.
They want to see exemplary natural communities in relation to windows and bricks and, fences.
Yeah, or like the open space, like your conservation land is an exemplary natural community.
Mm-hmm.
Or exemplary natural open spaces.
I mean, that's what other folks were thinking versus
Habitats.
the habitats. Yeah.
Yeah,
So try habitats.
habitats.
Sure. That's fine. That's what we're trying to say there. So I think that's fine. And I think more people understand that.
Yep.
So this is something though that you're going to want to remember whenever we start talking strategies on the economy side of things. Because as I read over this, my question, the question comes up as, all right, so who's providing this as a service, and who's doing this as a business? And so I think you've got to make sure that you have that if you say, hey, this is something that we want to see as as something that tourists and residents can take part in, then I think we need to make sure that there's adequate space and encouragement on the economic side for somebody to actually look at this and say that hey, there's a business opportunity here in order to be able to do that. But,
Either that or we get the state to allow us to charge a 1% sales tax.
Amen, brother.
And then we pay for it.
Or we can get half that 9% short-term rental revenue back
Yeah.
from the state.
Okay. So I'm going to remove
You're right, though. You're right. We do
comment from
need
this
to
draft then.
Yep, sure. And do we need that last sentence? I mean, are we really going to have a transformative change in the tourist industry?
well, something that I think I don't have an answer for this, but I being one of those people that gets stuck in that traffic, in the summertime trying to head out, I usually wind up going, alternative, picking an alternative route. I don't know really how much of the traffic that, that goes through there is drive through, tourism in terms of people just going, for the sites. I'm sure there's definitely, some of it that's that. But I think in order to really kind of identify, kind of where these people, where are these people going and where are they coming from? I think that's an important piece of info that could be asked, at some point in the future, to try to understand, where people are going, along that route. So,
does it make sense to change that to start us in our goal is a transformative change in the tourist industry? It's a goal that we want to try to attain.
We're not into goals.
What's that?
Yeah.
We're not into goals right now.
We can just say these changes. I think transformative was maybe the.
Oh, I mean, we could sit there and talk about it all day, and if nothing happens, then what?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Jim. I think what was your concern with that? Was it the word transformative?
Yeah, because I
that's a pretty powerful word.
It is.
Yeah, and that came from the ecotourism concept. I think it flowed quite naturally, but from my selfish point of view, I'm not really interested in increasing tourism. Like every room, every rental has been booked for the entire summer. You can't get a restaurant reservation.
Exactly.
Any place.
No one could eat.
So I'm not looking to double tourism. And I think that's part of the balance. If we could double tourism, but we'd have to completely just, everybody would be a short-term rental and we'd allow bigger hotels.
Yeah, but we need to support the tourism community because it's an important part of our.
Of course.
Right,
Right, so
I kind of agree with Paul. It's an economies of scale. I mean, if what we support now, like he said, he can't go down and get a reservation.
There's not enough food to feed all the people in this community.
But if we make this, if it continues to do what it is, it just exasperates. It's exponentially, gets worse. But I don't know. That's why the only reason I recommend it's maybe goal's not the right word, but it's striving to, attain that transformative change. So.
Okay. Yeah, I really didn't see this as being transformative. Really, it was more evolutionary in trying to minimize the impact of tourism on the town by doing other things, right? So, because they're not going to stop people who want to come here and, spend a really nice hotel and go out for a really nice dinner and go into the shops and then, maybe do a little hiking in KCT.
So,
but, that's what they want to do. So how do we minimize that impact so it has less of an impact on the residents who just want to go from A to B because they got to get something at the store?
Right, but if we just say that change from a gas powered to an electric powered shuttle bus, the people are still coming. You know what I mean?
I think what you're
the same amount of problems.
What you're trying to do here is you're trying to create some language that encourages the tourist industry to have a lighter footprint. I think is what you're not. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not hearing anyone say that it's like we're not trying to create a new industry here, right. Because as I read through this, we're talking about how that if we do these changes, it'll alleviate traffic and get rid of a demand for parking. Well, that's not really the case because it's what I've heard is what I'm hearing is like buses and electric shuttles. Well, really what that says to me is that creates more of a demand for parking because you've got to have some type of satellite spot for this. Right. And that's not really what you're saying. I think ultimately what you're asking is that we're asking for tourism, which is a big industry here, to have a lighter footprint. And here are some of the things that that industry, is going to need to consider. This is something, some of these types of things really want to be in, in that part of the document where we start talking about, the strategies, pieces of it.
Mhm.
But right now it's still casting just the vision of, asking tourism to have a lighter footprint on the community and the environment. And that's really I think all you need to say at this stage in the document.
We can strike everything but the first sentence.
Yeah, because you all decide, but I think these types of things are really good for strategies.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
Which will show up somewhere else.
I like that word collaborate that you used. I mean, I don't know. We will encourage sustainable tourism in collaboration with local businesses that generates less noise, consumes, I think, I'd like to, we're all talking about it, but it would be nice to set the expectation that hopefully the people that run the businesses will, collaborate to resolve the problem too.
Yeah, you want a lighter impact. You want, that, again, I like the language there about a lighter footprint, in the community. It's, it's recognizing its value, but also, asking for it, to evolve,
right.
Into something that's a little bit different than what it is today. And I think to that end, businesses, as I understand it, businesses are amenable to that, as long as it's something that, that they can, that their business will still be sustainable.
Right.
With those types of changes, you go too far in one direction and it's, you don't get any buy-in, from anybody because it's, it's ideas generated, by those of us that don't run businesses.
We don't have scale. Yeah.
Right.
So we can lose this last sentence in the paragraph then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Warner, are you suggesting, and I'm not, take maybe from tourists down, move that into strategy?
Yeah.
The strategy section?
Yeah. Yep. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think some of those ideas there are, those are good ideas.
Right.
But they would be strategies.
They'd be better. Yeah. They'd be better in a strategy section.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
if
They are strategies in that sense, but I want to make sure that the reader who's not part of this conversation, when they read that first sentence, they'll say, well, what exactly are they talking about? What does this mean? And that's the purpose of the sentences that follow.
So why don't we move that last sentence up to the second sentence? Just put it right up there instead of the end. I mean, traffic congestion is a problem. Put it right in the second sentence. That way we do a lighter footprint and is a concern in the first sentence and,
Yeah. I mean, part of this.
I still don't think we're making a transformative change.
Yeah, I'd probably lose transformative.
By saying goodbye to transformative. There we go.
What we're also encouraging someone, the future reader of this is to go from this introductory section to go, I mean, if I'm being
strategy section, right?
If I'm being inquisitive, I'm going to want to understand. Okay, great. Well, how the heck are they going to do this? Like where's the idea for this? And that's where the inquisitive reader goes and looks for those.
But what about the readers that aren't there for you to tell them to go look?
Right. Yeah.
We use the words where we strike the balance, where it's we want to balance out. Being there for the businesses, but also be cognitive of the continued problem. It's a balance that we all have to work towards. I don't know if this.
Shall we move on? I mean, you can always come back here again.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Move on.
I would take the tourists will utilize power shuttles and all that and
Yeah.
move it into strategies.
I agree.
I mean, I think it's important whether you use walking tours or not, but that you're then referencing the abundant, it's not just the KCT property and the Rachel Carson, it's historic sites, diversity of shade trees, beautiful gardens, etc. That's the package.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
All right, there's a last component of your economic opportunities section is short-term rentals, this paragraph right here. Top of page 2.
Let's go on.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't any comments on it.
Awesome paragraph, and then we have comments we hadn't considered yet in red.
Oh, okay.
Maintain traditional mix of rental properties, particularly in neighborhoods where this type of housing was traditional, as in not rented.
So I have a couple of comments here, on this. I will tell you what, and this is where we balance where we balance things out. New homes will meet the highest standards of energy efficiency. So energy efficiency is a great thing to shoot for. I will tell you that, even with some of the changes that we've recently seen, I mean, it substantially increases the cost of construction. Not to say that doesn't, always when you look at these things, you look at them spread out over over a history of a mortgage and things like that. But, for a lot of folks, those increases, make that housing unobtainable. I do think so. Use of renewable energy, residential heat and electricity. So I do think there's some potential good language there in terms of how do we figure out how to encourage folks to do those types of add-ins. I think that's a good piece there. Building materials sourced from wood. I'm not quite sure what that wants to be in a strategy, but those are just my kind of quick comments. Is there a strategy that says, I don't know, sorry, no more vinyl siding? I don't know what
no
that.
brick.
Right. Yeah.
Concrete.
I don't know.
Actually, that's coming from the state's new climate action plan. And that's where the state's going. So whether Kennebunkport wants to jump on board or not, I think you're probably going to get taken along for the ride anyways.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, everything's built out of wood, but or certainly there's a big large portions of our construction are done that way. I just wasn't quite when I read that, I'm like, all right, what is this? How does this turn into a strategy? What does this look like? But so it's good to have a little bit of the background in terms of
I kind of agree. I mean, if I'm looking at in relation to a painted trim board in relation to an AZAC board that doesn't need to be painted every 10 years, I mean, what's going to be better for the environment? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that language, I think what did I just see some, there's an article in Maine Biz, about, just some renewed, we've got some, renewed investment in different engineered lumber being built in the state, which is great. and so that may be where some of that language is coming from in terms of helping to support those, those industry initiatives. So
how about getting rid of the wood? Would that make everybody a little more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue. I just always ask the question of what does that,
Right.
what does that want to look like in the end?
Looks like a lot of wooden buildings.
Well, we got plenty of those.
The architectural standards or suggestions for building materials in your site plan or architectural standards in the future.
Werner, on the energy efficiency, with, I would guess, 8 out of every 10 homes being built are from people from away who are here for a few months and leave their heat on all winter. Our carbon footprint is intensifying significantly, and yet we're a coastal community. So I think, as local residents, I don't know whether you say on houses above 2,500 square feet, you need to do this. But when people are putting in, $100,000 patios and stone outdoor fireplaces that look magnificent, I don't think it's, I think we can aspire to a value that would have them become a little more carbon neutral and not just
100%.
make our town.
I don't disagree with you there one bit, and so, in that regard, let me, I'll kind of clarify that, that statement, of, and I don't know, I hesitate in going into, if you have a 2,500 square foot house, then you should meet X for a standard, I don't know that that's, I don't know that that's the right approach to it. But I do recognize exactly what you're saying in that, in that a lot of the construction that we do see, there's a lot of, excess spent on, other items, and that, if we say, hey, you need to add X, Y, Z for our value, that, in terms of, reducing your overall climate impact, like that's that's not a hard ask. I hear what you're saying there.
But aren't those building standards that are continuing? New houses are 2x6 construction. They're not 2x4 construction anymore.
That's true.
You're putting in an increased R value anyways. Most right. Houses are, batted insulation is what it is, but when you start talking about blown insulation, the R values increased. The state's gonna push us there, regardless of what we do locally, so long as there isn't a dramatic change in Augusta, and we're going to be building, carbon neutral homes by, the end of this decade. This just gives us. What do you mean maybe? It's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe. Like we were saying earlier, those can be very expensive. So
absolutely.
So we're just going to be a community of rich people? That's not what we're trying to do. So
I want to hear more about it, because it's kind of hard in the Northeast where we're in a cold weather. Like my house has oil, and I built a wood burning furnace when I built it because I didn't want my money going over to OPEC Arabs that were charging us $4 a gallon for oil. So I was burning 9 cords of wood to heat my house. But my house is made with packed cellulose when I built it because I wanted it to be more energy efficient. I didn't want to lose that value, that heat value. And I only burned 1 tank of oil a year in a 2,700 square foot house. But
well done.
Yeah, but I'd probably be villainized for burning 9 cords of wood, out my smokestack. But I don't know. I think it's important to be encouraging for people to make right decisions, but I don't believe in stomping on somebody's ability to live the American dream and build a house of their dreams, even if it's a second home.
Yeah, I think what I see is that there needs to be a greater encouragement towards folks not feeling the need to have to construct large houses to begin with, and I mean this is I think is as much a cultural thing for us as anything else, but when you look at private developers putting in, the private restrictions, which they're entitled to do so, that specify minimum house sizes, that in and of itself starts to drive, construction costs as well. I mean, the square footage of it matters. And, at the end of the day, there's a big difference between 2,500 square feet or 1,300 square feet, in terms of cost. I mean, ultimately, I think housing, in terms of becoming more sustainable and more efficient and affordable, we're going to have to get smaller. We're going to have to build better, but we're also going to have to probably go smaller, and that's going to be a big challenge, I think, for folks just culturally.
I don't know how we change that from the town standpoint.
Well, Werner mentioned it last time that we've always had, a minimum house size, and the state law now has changed. So we have to look at that because of allowing tiny houses. Mm-hmm. Werner, am I right to think that supersedes our local code?
Well, so not 100%. I mean, a tiny house is a defined, that's a defined structure, that, follows a specific definition that's outlined in state law. And so that's a little bit different between, a community that might have a minimum dwelling unit size. So, ironically, we actually don't have a minimum dwelling unit size for a single family home. But we do have dimensional relationships. I'll say whenever you're dealing with a two-family, there's you start getting into some unit sizes with a two-family, and then there's also relationship in the numbers when you look at accessory apartments. One essentially making sure that the accessory is smaller than the primary, and maybe that is one of the things that you have, in the housing, that, looking at some of those size relationships and whether or not those make sense in terms of dealing with the challenges, that we have. Like, have we created, I don't know, have we created issues by having, some of these dimensional requirements? So,
Werner, you bring up some good points. I guess what I'm wondering is the vision chapter, the place
for it. Yeah.
Maybe the housing chapter would be a more appropriate place.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yep.
Okay. So then we don't have to worry about incorporating that concept into this paragraph. No. We haven't received another comment from the public. Came in a few minutes ago. They objected to the term workforce housing. I guess it's workforce is a term that's objectionable up here in the second sentence, right up the top here.
Yeah.
They objected to it?
Yeah, it says, I don't appreciate the term workforce.
I think it's worthy of following. Okay. Yeah, I guess maybe they need to have the term defined to them where, they may be considering it a certain type of housing, and what we know is workforce housing is more affordable housing,
right. Apparently it's
people that want to work in the community.
Yeah, I guess it can be a loaded term, I guess, in some places. Well, how about you could address the same point?
We struggled with that term
before. Yeah.
Yeah. What about
We struggled
changing the
with that
sentence?
term when we were talking about it.
How about taking out the word workforce and just talk about local residents and businesses?
Good.
That's
I like
good.
That's fine. That's fine.
Well, we'll lose workforce then?
Yep.
Yep. So just say there'll be housing to support the needs of local business and opportunities.
Yeah, and we certainly heard that at the session in July, that people, say
Mhm.
people have been in town forever, or some of them are struggling to stay.
It's part of that balance.
Yeah.
Good. So I think we can strike that red.
Okay.
Jennifer,
Did we come to any agreement on gentrification?
I think it ought to be that sentence should just be
We're leaving it
stricken.
in?
I think so
I would. I don't think it adds anything to it. So
No,
I would strike gentrification will be slowed.
I don't
I
don't know
prefer
what
to
it
take it out. I don't.
Well, let me tell you my thought, because I didn't want to put it in there originally. Is, I think one of the big issues that is going to be hitting the town and all of New England pretty hard on the next 10 years is migration caused by events in other parts of the United States.
Mhm.
The Southwest, the Colorado River is drying up. California catches on fire all the time. Folks in Louisiana are getting tired of getting slammed all the time with hurricanes. I think you're going to see, just like you did with the COVID pandemic, you're going to see a lot of people moving to Maine. And that's going to happen. I'm sure, we're going to see more of it in the next 10 years. So I think the plan needs to acknowledge that this is going to happen and say, okay, we got to figure out a way to deal with this, because if we don't, the people who come in with, the haves are going to displace the have-nots. That's the way it's going to work. So,
I guess I don't. To me, it seems like we're referring to as we're shaming it, and we put in we want to be a welcoming, we want to be diverse, and to me, it's I just prefer to take it out. We're trying to strive for better housing. You want to live the American dream. You want to build a big house. We want to encourage you to do small houses. To me, it's I don't know.
right. Well, I'm in favor of accommodating all these new people, but I also don't want them to push the people who are already here out.
No, I agree, but I would certainly, it's nice to when people move into town and become year-round residents and part of the community year-round. If that's what they're going to do, I would encourage people to move here that they can afford to.
Right. When I refer to gentrification, it's basically, we're basically, if you fit this type of description or this kind of, thing, we kind of don't want you.
Yeah.
I don't, Tom, what is your definition of gentrification?
It's when longtime residents with limited means get pushed out. That's how
Okay.
And that's what we heard at the session in July.
It's for urban, the urban definition is similar, but it's people with a lot of money coming in and taking over.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to,
I just don't know.
get in their way. I'm just trying to think that the plan should probably acknowledge that there's a threat to people.
I just don't think all people that come in with money are bad. You know what I mean? It to me, it tags a certain shame to it. And I'm not sure I agree with having that in there. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I think we could address some of those things within the housing section. Because we talk about the stuff we want to see, right?
Right.
We want to see the housing that supports the local residents and businesses, that we have senior housing, walking distance to amenities, assisted living, starter homes. So we're doing we want all those things that what gentrification would stop.
All right.
And then we can put things in place to
that's
try to deal with that.
That's kind of a nerdy term anyway, so I'm okay losing it.
Yeah.
The concept I like, but the term itself is not, appealing to the average reader.
No.
Well, and that's, it means a lot of different things. You say gentrification in a city, and it's and it's a much different animal.
Right.
Gentrification here, ironically, Kennebunkport has been going through a process of gentrification since the Seashore Company, bought all of Cape Arundel. That certainly is a piece of gentrification that's happened, and you could lose a lot of people, I think, in the weeds, with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that, people are moving here because they like it the way we have it, and they're not going to change it to the way they want it or where they came from.
That's called hope.
Right. You voted the way where you were. Don't come here and vote the same way.
Yeah, just they have to all come and have a conversation with Paul before they buy. You can talk about how his changes he saw. Right, Paul? And how you're working not to have that happen again, and not have Jersey come up here, right?
Hey.
California.
Hey, I'm a Jersey too.
Hey.
We have 3 people from New Jersey on this committee.
And I'm Wildwood, right on the coast.
Yeah.
Right.
Believe me, I've seen it through my life.
Hey, everybody in my department's from Jersey, so I deal with it all the time.
All right. Before we leave housing, we got another comment from the audience. It says, housing, et cetera, is not as important to us as overdevelopment of the land.
What was the
Define overdevelopment of the land?
Yeah.
It means losing the beautiful town of open spaces and nice roadways and it being replaced by, subdivisions. That's what I think
That's fine.
that comment means.
That's fair.
That's fair. That's something we will work at within our goals and strategies. Right?
Yeah, and I think
as you had balanced housing and you balance natural resources and you balance tourism.
And you're going to see it further on in this document as well.
Yep. That's a good comment.
You guys ready for the next paragraph? Fresh and local?
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you all read it and let me know what you think.
I think it's fine.
I think it sounds lovely. It's just right now, I don't know where this is all going to happen. Are people going to start farming?
Well, I think part of the tricky part, tricky part is that, you have a lot of different things that all interconnect, and it's, I hear it on a regular basis. Folks say, well, gosh, we wish we had a grocery store here in town. And, and I think, those who have kind of been there and done that, just struggle with the economics of it.
Right. I mean, if we were going to try to do a farmer's market, that would fit in here and that would be great.
Right.
We talked about that. Yeah, I remember talking about that.
Fresh and local.
That would be a strategy.
Yeah, that would be a strategy.
Right.
But right at this point, when you're talking about fresh and local, you're talking about food sources. And we all pretty much know that we have to go to Kennebunk and Biddeford and online to get food.
Well, we do
Aside
have
from
fish.
buying fresh seafood, which is lovely with, 3 C's and we have Bradbury's, but I don't think there are going to probably be too many merchants opening food stores. In fact, I think it's a problem.
All right. Well, we're looking at our vision here.
The vision.
Yeah. When we get to the other part of the comp plan, we'll be talking about, well, is this really attainable?
Okay.
Right. Yep.
Then
No, I think it's good.
And, and if it is attainable, how exactly would it work?
Okay.
How does so
This is what we
creativity?
hope for. Okay.
Creativity and connectivity will be celebrated. What do we mean by that? Like we're
We're going to have a farmer's market every year and
Mm.
have a band and we'll celebrate.
No, that's what I mean. When I read that, does that mean that we're going to be open to the creativity of finding better ways to eat fresh and local?
Sure.
Could be. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
sense.
You could also get more of the arts industry into the local economy too.
and there's a lot of agriculture going indoors in terms of microgreens and other kinds of things. And even though they don't exist today,
Right.
it could be what somebody wants to do on, a field that has terrible soil, but maybe they can make it work as a,
Right.
Consumables. Location.
Consumables and not the carcinogen ones. So.
So I guess we're okay with this paragraph?
Mm-hmm.
All right, infrastructure.
Tom, before you move on, there's another comment from a participant that says Maine is based on farming. This makes it seem like you're going to limit farming, which I don't think is the intent.
I don't see that in this language.
Yeah, no, and I'll go back to one of the first things I learned about Kennebunkport when we started this project. I asked, well, where are the farms? Where's the good farmland? And Paul, you answered that question. You said, forget about it. The soil conditions just aren't there. It's never been a good place for a large scale farm. So we capture what's possible in that last sentence, small scale agriculture, where it works,
Do you think that person would want to hear, since they're talking about Maine, it would be the first sentence, and available from local merchants and regional service providers, or something regional where,
Mm-hmm.
to go with
if you
Janet.
enlarge your radius, you can find there's
Okay, so
Right.
we're going to put regional up here.
I like Janet said, if we're going to encourage farmers markets, then, I think the regional aspect where you may get
absolutely.
a bigger variety of locally grown foods, to me is
Right.
Yeah, it's good ad.
Yeah, local could be 30 minutes away. That's still
Right.
pretty low.
I don't know if
Even though we'll drive for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know if regionals have you want to put in there with local or not, but
Yeah. You could say area merchants or, I think we made the point that there is agriculture all around us. It's not necessarily in Kennebunkport, but
Right. If you go to Wells, if you go to
it's
Waterloo,
available within a reasonable amount of time, I guess.
but it would be nice to make it more accessible to us
But
here.
we'd like to have
Sure.
a farm.
Right.
Okay, infrastructure. What do we have to say about that?
Oh, this comment in red below it, what that was supposed to mean was the person who gave me the organizational comments said we should do a similar thing with infrastructure and put the call, place streets, public ways, internet, all as infrastructure and group them together.
What's everybody else think about that?
sorry, I was reading.
Yeah, just you're putting like topics together without a dark, a
But
bold.
we throw climate resilience in between
Yeah,
infrastructure. And so the comment was just take
Yeah.
internet,
reorder it.
take those three bullets and put them together. And
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, that's what it looks like. I don't know why childcare came out funny. Yeah.
It's Word, Microsoft Word, drives me crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So now infrastructure is expanded to 3 paragraphs. What do we think of these 3?
But the streets and public ways also is part of infrastructure, isn't it?
That's paragraph number 2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I saw
Yeah.
it still below. Sorry. Below climate resilience, you still had the headline maybe.
So some of these things, we have to recognize are state level conversations. And not to say that they shouldn't be in there. I think just when it comes to dealing with the strategy pieces for some of these things, we just want to recognize that some of this is going to be in encouraging and working to influence legislation.
Right. But the great advantage of having it in your vision section is that when you do have those conversations with the state officials, at some point they'll say, well, is that in your plan? And you say, yeah, absolutely, it's right there. This is this is not something we just thought up. We've been working toward this for a while.
Hey, Warner, the last solar arrays will be commonplace, albeit cited discreetly so as to minimize the visual impact. So if we want to encourage people, to have solar, will we run into a problem with certain properties that have, footprints that aren't really conducive to that? I mean,
Now, so it's a great question.
I want to see people if they put them in their yard. Like honestly, I could care less if I drive by and I see 50 lobster traps. If I see somebody that wants to be self-reliant and has solar arrays in their, yard, good for them. Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
I think the bigger question is, I kind of look at solar development. It's really 2 different categories. You have folks that do solar, privately on their own property. And then there's industry solar, right? There's a solar farm, and there's a significant difference between somebody putting, solar on their, on the roof of their house, as opposed to, here's 6 acres that are, that's a solar farm, 2 very different.
So you're running a business at that point.
2 very different impacts. And so, one, I think we want to have some language in here that encourages solar. But I do think in the strategies, if it's going to be something that's larger scale, in terms of, an industry, piece, now that's where you want to start talking about maybe some design standards and buffering, that goes along with it. But I don't think
solar.
Right. Yeah. But what I don't think you're saying here that, if somebody has a dozen panels in their yard, that, that we should require some kind of buffering so I don't have to look at it from the street. That's not what you're saying here. I think really the cited discreetly and visual impact is industry scale.
So how do we, if you read this the way it is, I agree with Jim, this could be taken to discourage me from putting them on my roof because somebody thinks that looks ugly.
Right.
I mean, right. Somebody's going to complain about a square house down in Goose Rocks and they're not going to like solar panels. Like, solar arrays will be encouraged in the business and private sector while keeping the visual impact, in mind.
Yeah. I think you just want to say, you want to, tip your hat to the fact that large scale solar farms, that if we're going to encourage those or allow something like that to show up, that, that we need some type of, buffering standard for them.
Well, we could put that in the strategies. I think, Jim, actually the first words you said there, solar arrays could be
should be encouraged in the business and private sector.
Period. And I think we're good. And I think we can deal with, whether we.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
So you would probably say residential and commercial solar arrays will be commonplace, period?
Sure.
Because one's residential and one's commercial, really.
Yeah. And then we'll deal with, the visual impact on the big solar farm if some company decides they want to invest.
Yeah, there should be a strategy to have a design standard. I agree.
But like Jim said, if you drive by and someone got a couple of solar panels in the yard, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, and that's not what you're talking about.
Right.
We're not on a 6,000 acre ranch where there's like acres of it and you see the cows walking under them, or whatever. It's multi-purpose, If we do that, we're going to cut the trees down and then everybody's going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's a tricky question, because so the thing is the town has open spaces, right? Has open fields, and so that is a question of saying like, all right, well, if 3-phase power goes by that location, like how do you feel if commercial solar was located there?
Yep.
Like that's
where we strike the balance where if we're going to allow the, public property, then maybe we have that balance.
Public or private property. We also have a section with certain visual, I forget what the heading is, the natural landscapes, the places that we treasure is like, we don't want solar going up on those.
Right.
So there's, in the strategy section, we can.
But yeah, if we have solar panels in a park where we provide shade because trees are gone, whatever.
As the author of this sentence, the original one anyways, I thought it was sufficiently vague to give you all plenty of room to maneuver. Pretty much everybody's in favor of solar, except some people don't want it next door. So that's the reason for saying, okay, we're not going to do it willy-nilly. We're going to be careful about it.
I mean, if we're gonna consider it a commonplace and we shouldn't really, I would hope that, we're friendly neighbors, and if somebody wants to be energy independent and they choose to put them all on their yard, like that, to me, that's their choice and good for them for being carbon neutral. Like, why would I ever? I'm not going to care about that. If somebody wants to put 3 clunker cars in their yard, whatever. Like, it's just, they're the ones paying taxes, not me. I will never judge them for what they do on their own property.
Yeah, whenever we get asked the question, generally speaking, what we tell folks is that, if you're putting solar on your property as, that's, the intent is that you're providing for your own power and your own resource. We treat it as we treat that as an accessory to that use that's there,
Sure.
But, when the questions have come up that say, well, we're thinking of X instead, which is more akin to, income generating that goes above and beyond, just dealing with your own use. Now that becomes, something
you're running
different.
a business. Well, you're running a business different. At that point. That's the land use issue.
Okay, what do we do with the sentence?
Can I jump in for a second? Because there's a couple comments that have come in. One of them was related to the last section. Kennebunkport has a history of farming and it should be encouraged in a way to cut back on carbon footprint. And then there's 2 that are pertinent to the ordinance or solar discussion. One is we need ordinances for solar farms. There are towns in York County that are clear cutting for solar farms. The second is why not put panels on roofs of all municipal buildings and nonprofit buildings? So I think maybe getting into strategies, but definitely valid points.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we can be really simple and just say, as Jim had noted, maybe we add government buildings as well, and just say there'll be commonplace, and we'll deal with the details of whether or not they need to be discrete or not discrete, or how close they can be to the setbacks and all that kind of stuff when we get into strategies and goals, and then the actual ordinances that support it. Right?
So, Dan, are you suggesting we lose this part of the sentence?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to be held. I don't want to be held to that for a resident.
Right.
Really. I don't want to say, hey.
All right. So I think we've We have our vision of solar here. Nice.
I do appreciate the, yeah, well, it's a vision, right? You gotta have some wiggle room.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the feedback that we're getting. It's nice. Thank you.
Next paragraph down, streets and public ways.
Can I jump in for 1 second? I just want everyone to be mindful of the hour, and if we do want to consider a workshop later in the month of September, we may want to either have a quick discussion on some logistics or push that workshop off.
Are we having a hard stop at 8 for the time? Are we having a hard stop at 8?
Yeah.
That's what we try to do.
Yeah. So I think she's right. We probably should address that.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
I don't mean to interrupt this.
No, I think
this
there's
session.
15 minutes left.
Thanks for asking.
We'll keep going on the vision.
It will be there next time.
Okay. All right. So thanks for that. I mean, it was good conversation. But thank you for bringing that up. So the whole land use ordinance discussion will obviously have to add to a later point. Let's get to agenda 4, item 4. So workshop number 2, planning. I mean, that would be, 2 weeks from now or less than that. So I don't, yeah. We don't have the vision statement ready for that.
No, that's right.
So I think we definitely need to push that off. Not sure what our opportunities are, though. That's one of the problems.
And remind everybody again, that's listening for the workshop.
So we had, so we're planning on doing our second workshop, which we've been calling the Future Land Use Workshop. And it's where we hope to get input from community members on a few key issues, different types of uses that folks would like to see in different areas of the town. Maybe talk about residential development trends and conditions, and talk about sea level rise and hazards in the context of future development. We had initially talked about having an in-person workshop, and then decided, I think with Werner's guidance, that Zoom was probably the best way to go. And we've talked to IT about what our capabilities are for a Zoom workshop, and it looks like we'll be able to have some of the functions that we'd like to have in sort of a workshop setting, which would be allowing participants to use the chat dialogue box rather than the Q&A. With the chat function, other people can see the comments, and it's a little bit easier for audience members to interact and see what other folks are commenting on. We can also use a polling function and get some live input from everyone who's attending. And if we want, we could try to do breakout rooms also. So we did have a couple tentative dates in mind that would work at the end of the month with the town's, I think, Zoom schedule. And that was, let me just pull this up. I wrote August 28th, but it's September 28th or 29th. For the potential times, and we were thinking a 6 to 8 meeting with a login a little bit earlier. So I guess in a nutshell, that's sort of what we're looking at with logistics. We would need to flesh out our agenda, run it by all of you, which we can send out a draft, and then do some advertising as soon as possible, if we do want to move forward at the end of the month.
So the consensus was to have this remote.
We have no
And
choice. The town won't let us do it in person.
They won't because
They've gone back to public meetings in by Zoom.
okay, all right, okay.
Mhm.
Because I know I brought up the fact that there was some people that were discouraged that there was only, what was it, 100 people or 75 that we allowed at the other opportunity at Northampton.
Right.
I want to make sure if we do it that we don't displace people, that we create enough, that people will be encouraged, but we're not going to confuse them with the technology. I like that polling option, and I'd be interested to figure out, because if we do get like 100+ people on a Zoom meeting, how do we manage that and orchestrate or try to hear everybody in 2 hours? And
Yeah, it's tough.
it is. I don't know. What do you mean by? Can you explain
tough,
the polling part?
It's tough, but it won't be the first 100-person meeting on Zoom. So the polling part, and I think your point about making sure everyone can attend is a valid one. And I do apologize for the registration confusion with the caps and the numbers changing. We didn't actually have to turn anyone away. So I hope that everyone attended the first workshop that wanted to. As far as the polling goes, we would create a set of questions in advance, and they would be loaded up into the backside of the meeting, I'll say. And then during the meeting, the poll questions can be shown on the screen, and folks can respond. Click it with their mouse, basically clicking their response.
In real time.
In real time. And then the chat function for folks who haven't participated in a Zoom meeting with a chat function, instead of the Q&A box, the chat function works the same way, but when you enter a question, you can send it directly to an individual participant, or you can send it to the whole group. And then everyone can see the questions coming in, and folks can also respond to those questions instead of having it be a more moderated Q&A.
Yeah, I'd like to see how, I think what the benefit of the last opportunities we had, people that, could talk, but they could also write things down. I like if we could somehow formulate it where they'll have the ability to, maybe we don't want somebody talking for 10 minutes. Maybe we can, encourage them, we want to hear your thoughts. Please, find a way to formulate to have them write it down and get those comments, so you can then collect them, and like we did with all the illustrations and stuff before.
Yeah. So one thing that we can always accept comments after the meeting, of course. But when you do write your comments in the chat box, we can save the transcript of the chat. So that's a great way to have the whole discussion that occurs in the chat on record. We'd also be recording the meeting. And yes, if someone does want to talk for 10 minutes, we will probably have to politely ask them to stop. And, if they don't, or if someone is really disruptive, then we'll have the capability to mute them if necessary. So
I think if we put a time limit up front, if, say we ask speakers to limit their comments to 3 minutes or something like that, particularly if there's 50 people or 75 people, so that we're not offending anybody specifically.
Right. But if you want to sit on your soapbox, we encourage you to, draft up and send it to us, so we have that information. We don't want to limit. I don't want to limit people, but you're right. We only have 2 hours, and it's so easy to listen to somebody right in front of us as opposed to over here. How would the break room work on a Zoom? How would we do that?
What I was going to suggest is, we're going to meet again in 2 weeks. Maybe we can demonstrate some of these Zoom features 2 weeks from tonight, so you guys have a good sense of how it works.
Yeah, because I think if we do the break room, maybe, you know, if somebody does talk a little bit longer, at least it's concentrated on a smaller group. You know, I don't know. You know,
I think we can definitely demonstrate, but I do think that if the group wants to move forward with having a workshop at the end of the month, then that should probably be decided tonight.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Sure.
Not necessarily all the different logistics behind it, but and I'm not trying to push you to have it, but we're trying to keep you on track with your overall deadline. And
I think with what you described is what we want to talk about. I think that could be conveyed to people and they'll have a general sense of what they want to bring to the table. So I don't think there's a reason to hold off. I think we should go forward and have a meeting.
One thing, and as we just think about the breakout rooms, remember too that this also gets televised, you know, and so I'm not sure how I think I get, you know, technologically how within a Zoom call you can break out into different groups, you know, but from a broadcast perspective, you know, I think that's where I'm not quite sure how that works if you've got multiple groups, you know, going on. I don't know. I don't know if those individual breakouts can be individually recorded.
Yeah, we put people on the moon 60 years ago. Why can't we figure this out? Like,
that's something we'll have to check with IT about. I'm not sure about the broadcasting.
So you can't listen to 4 conversations at once.
No.
So
right, exactly.
that's really not feasible.
Right.
So maybe.
So can I butt in for a second? Can you describe, if we weren't doing this by Zoom, what would be the process? And then let's see what we can do to make Zoom work for that process.
Yeah. No, it's a good question.
I think so. Tom and I have we have thought about that, and this is what we're proposing based on the constraints of working with Zoom in this setting. So we picked 3 topics, 3 sort of overarching topics that we thought were interested in getting feedback on from the community, and those are the topics I mentioned earlier. So residential development, conditions and trends, different types of uses in different areas of town, and sea level rise and hazards. So what we have drafted for a rough agenda is to go through a series of short presentations, 10 to maybe 15 minutes, depending on how much content we think the audience needs. And then present a couple polling questions, and then have a facilitated discussion for 15 minutes, and then sort of repeat that structure throughout the meeting. So there's a mix of presentations where the audience is listening and learning, for example, about residential trends or which areas may be impacted by sea level rise sooner than other areas. And then we'll put the questions on the screen, everyone can respond, and then we'll have a facilitated discussion with specific questions that we have identified in advance. And we'll do the best we can to keep people on topic. So that will really give people a mix of ways to participate and engage. We don't have to do breakout groups in that scenario, which are really nice. But there's always the possibility that people get lost when you send them to a breakout room, and then we'd have to get everyone back. Not that they would physically get lost, but that we would send them somewhere. So that was our first sort of rough agenda. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Tom.
I was going to say one of the questions we'll be trying to answer in the comp plan is the zoning ordinance still working the way it was intended to? Does it need to be updated? Does it need to be tweaked or adjusted in terms of land use or dimensional requirements? You know, it's very important to hear from the community, you know, that because we want to drive this plan where the people want it to go. And so the conversations I'm hoping to hear was, why does the zoning not allow me to do this here? It would make perfect sense. And then, of course, which is lots of good question.
So that brings up the concern that if we do it how Liz described, we're bound to a couple questions at the end, right? Where I want to make sure that if people do want to express themselves, we still figure out where we're going to collect all of those comments, not necessarily the couple questions. Is that what
we do that in the chat?
Yeah, I mean, people can provide comments in the chat. They're welcome to attend these meetings and provide comments and email, call. We're certainly not trying to, there are limitations on a 2-hour workshop. Definitely want as much public input as we can get.
Right.
It's gonna, I guess if you have more, I mean, I feel like there's maybe like a specific situation that we might need to address, like a specific concern, and I'm happy to work with you to try to address that.
And another way we could follow up is if there's an issue that's difficult to resolve at the work session, we can always shoot out a electronic survey afterwards just to get a wider audience, to weigh in on the question.
Yeah.
So we know that we're not being driven in a particular direction by just the people who showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's tough the way we have to do it. There's the inability to have the back and forth and to keep on track. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I think people will recognize that. A lot of folks have participated in Zoom meetings or watched them and have done the chat or had the opportunity to speak. And I think, as long as we kind of stick to the timeline and allow some folks to speak, unfortunately, some are going to want to speak and they won't have the opportunity because we need them to move on and stay on schedule. But we'll give them other ways to communicate to us.
Yeah, that's
via the chat or email or attend another meeting. That's fine.
Right.
I would say go ahead. I think, it'd be nice to have the breakout rooms, but unless we have some way to really record those, that might be sort of very difficult. And I think we just go with how you presented it. It seemed reasonable. We should get more feedback. So I'd say we go with, either the 28th or 29th.
I think it was the 27th or the 29th.
Oh, 27th or 29th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'd probably vote for the 29th then. But
I'd do the 27th just because.
Okay.
Football. Football practice. I'm helping coach.
Okay.
I can't do the 29th, but it doesn't make a difference.
The 27th is fine.
I'm good either way.
And the 27th got Monday Night Football, so everyone will want to finish up by 9 anyway.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right.
So
We do still have, looks like 8 Q&As there.
I think we just didn't, I don't see any that we didn't address. I think we just didn't dismiss or write an answer to them.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't leave somebody hanging out there.
I don't see any. Tom, do you see any?
I think we addressed all the comments.
I think
Well, we'll put them into the strategy, like farmers market.
Right.
See that
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we addressed all of the issues, but we acknowledged and comments.
When I said address, I meant this evening we spoke about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Okay, so it is a little after 8. Let's see where I'm at.
Okay.
So are we good? So the 27th, is that going to work for you guys?
Works for us. That's what I'm hearing. So what that means is we got to get started on advertising ASAP, probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, we want to make sure our video crew is available for this.
We'll double check with them again, but these were dates that they provided.
Yeah, we did have that conversation with them.
Yeah. So, okay. So
Thanks.
verify that, and let's make sure that that's all good before we actually commit to it.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
when you put that together, the advertising, can you send that to us in email so we can have the ability to pass that on to other folks to, that we know, to encourage them to participate?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, our goal is to get it out there to as many people as we possibly can.
Yep. Thank you.
And there are multiple ways, multiple channels.
Okay. So can we have like 3,000 people with that?
I think the limit's three.
With that?
There was a school board meeting on Monday, and it capped off at 300, and there was like 400 people that wanted to attend. So,
Oh,
Wow.
it may. They had to live stream it so people could watch after. So,
Well, this is going to be much more compelling than a school board meeting.
So like I said, 3,000 people. So we'll be stuck with 300. So we should know what that is. So that's included. And should we have a sign up then? If there is a limited number?
well, I guess maybe Warner asks, confirm if it's 300 by the IT guys.
Yeah, I think
And then-
I think that's what our license is. I think we're
Right.
at, I think we're at 300.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's what, if we're going to advertise, say, there's a limit of 300, we want to, but encourage people we want to hear from you if you can attend or,
Right.
So
Just
they'd
so you know.
RSVP and we'd send them a
301.
link.
So we'll be reaching out to the IT folks tomorrow just to confirm the 27th. We have had a conversation with them and a few weeks ago, and they were good with that date then. We're just going to make sure they still are.
Okay.
And we'll confirm if they want an RSVP or an open
Okay.
link.
Yeah, it's just the first 300 that sign in and the first 300 RSVP.
Yeah, I think so the way that we're set up, we need to provide that link onto our agenda. So if you're just, I think, if you're trying to do an RSVP and only send a link out to,
Oh, okay.
I think, if we just, it's first 300, first come, first serve. It's no different than any other public meeting that we have, in that regard. I mean, I, for one, would, I'd be tickled if we had, 300, but,
That's fine. That's like every other public meeting. That's the way we manage it. Let's stick to that.
Let's advertise it as something controversial, and then we'll get more people.
Yeah, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, prizes.
All right.
Put more buses or something, and then
right. Yeah, all you got to do is tell a bunch of working parents that you're going to make them become homeschoolers again, and that'll
Yeah. That'll do it.
Word.
just put hosted by the KBK moms, and then you'll immediately have 300 just chiming in just for the hell of it.
Okay. All right, so we're good with that.
I'd like to move that we accept
Before you do that,
August 17th.
there you go. That's what I was looking for.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Thank you, Janet.
Mm-hmm.
Any other business? Hearing none?
Hearing none, I propose that we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you very much, Jim. A second. All in favor? Thank you very much.
All right,
Good
thanks a lot,
conversation
guys.
Guys,
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.